Welcome to the first installment of Knots with Neka. And I'm going to start off at the most basics of basics, like we have never ever tied a knot before. All of these knots can be tied for crafts, camping, climbing, sailing, and all the things in between. Just make sure that you're using the appropriate string, paracord, or rope for whatever you're tying these knots for. To start off, let's learn some rope anatomy. Apologies if some terms are a little different. I've found that depending on where you're from or who taught you, some terms are a little different, but it's all the same thing. So I'm going to be using a hank of paracord, and a hank is just a hunk of rope at a designated length. You have your two ends. The working end is the end you're actively tying knots into. The rest of the rope is the running end. When the rope is taut, it is standing. When you take your working end and fold it into the running end, it creates this loop called a bight. In many knots, you will either create or need a bight to create that knot. And then you have your overhand loop and your underhand loop. Very simple idea, but it is important for certain knots that you start your rope in the appropriate position. Some knots it doesn't matter, you essentially just kind of end up tying it backwards, but it's still the same knot. You'll see in the future. And one thing I do want to make a point in this video is the idea of weaving. Most knots you will see or kind of understand there's a weave pattern happening that creates that knot. And we'll start off with just a simple overhand knot, which is probably the first knot we all learned, just to demonstrate that weave pattern in a very simple fashion. So I always think of an overhand knot. You take your working end and go over your running end. Then you come under the running end and you pull tight. And when you look at it, you can see it. It goes over and under, a weave pattern. Many knots will have that weave pattern to create them. And I think it's very helpful to kind of know and understand that weave aspect because it does make tying future knots much easier to understand. So we have concluded the first installment of Tying Knots with Neka, and soon I'll be sharing more knots as we build up our knot arsenal. Happy tying! Peace!